Welcome back to the Workshop Weekly podcast. I'm Tyler Weiss. As always, I'm joined by the one and only Dylan Peter. And we're here today on our third episode to tell you basically what we've been doing in the shop for the last week and our plans for the next week going ahead. And we've kind of figured this is going to be the layout of our podcast. We'll kind of go over the previous week and what we got planned for the next week to give you guys a little insight of what's going on in the shop. So Dylan, why don't you tell us about a few things that we built this week?
So we've done a few projects this week, and we've also got some new stuff in the shop, which has been really exciting. We moved in this big black granite table that you see behind me. Got that set up as a workstation for our 3D printer and for our laser engraver. The table fit perfectly in this little area that we have over here, so that was really nice. It's literally up against the desk and up against the wall, like we had to wedge it in there a little bit.
Like a glove. It was a little tight.
Yeah.
Scraped the wall off. Had to touch it up a bit, but
just a little bit. But yeah, it looks really nice, and it's really nice to have the 3D printer and the laser engraver back over here on their own table instead of just out here on our desk space. Cleared up the clutter a little bit, and they look really nice on this.
Yeah, and it'll be better too because if we burn through when we're cutting wood, we won't go onto your wooden desk. We'll be hitting granite, so shouldn't burn anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, we actually took the laser cutter and laser cut a grid onto the top of the granite table on whatever finish was on there. So that way we could just line objects up a lot easier, and we have an actual grid to work with now.
Yeah, and so that's made it a lot easier when we're working with the laser engraver, and so that's been really nice. We've been talking about getting this table in here for a while, and that was the part that I was most excited for, was getting that grid down. Speaking of getting this table in here, it was a pain in the ass. This thing is heavy.
Yeah.
Like
several hundred pounds.
Yeah, several hundred pounds. My buddy Nick came down and helped us move it, so shout out to Nick for that one.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, we've been talking about getting it down here for a few weeks. We wanted to have it in here and set up before we even started doing our podcast because I feel like it pulls the room together a lot and just makes for a nice background.
Yeah.
But yeah, we couldn't get anybody to come over here and help us, and me and Tyler were talking about moving it by ourselves, but I'm glad that we didn't try to do that because there was no way.
We would not have gotten that thing in here.
Yeah.
Gotten to the edge of the stairs and just been several pieces of a granite table.
Yeah.
Would have made a cool epoxy pour, but
yeah,
definitely wouldn't have been the safest bet.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So we got that table moved in this week. And then also this week we got our first YouTube video up, which was on the epoxy resin room that we put together. So basically we put that room together, took care of dust control, keeping it out of the shop and everything. So now we got a separate spot to pour epoxy, and we actually got a few projects rolling this week. So that was pretty cool. So I went ahead and put this together with actually I shouldn't say that because people on the podcast won't see it, but on the vidcast you'll see. So I went ahead and made a nice shelf, I think is what I'm going to turn it into, with a bunch of end grain branches and then a nice piece of knotty wood that I put in the center. Put a bunch of little pine cones in to fill it, and then we actually experimented with a few different colors, doing like a river pour on that one, and it turned out really cool. I'm really happy with that piece. I think it'll make a really nice shelf in the tiny house. And then Dylan, why don't you tell us about the pieces you've been working on?
Yeah. So I put together a cutting board. I had an old oak branch that we took off of a friend of ours' property, and so I cut that down into slabs and poured epoxy, like an epoxy river pour through the middle of it to make a cutting board. I just finished cutting that down and getting it all polished up today, and it looks pretty nice. So I'm excited about that. That's the first project like that I've done, the first cutting board that I've tried to make. It came out really good. So I'm excited. The color didn't come out exactly how I wanted it to. The red color that we have is like really bright red.
Yeah.
It's like almost pink.
It's almost a hot pink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wasn't really expecting that color when I mixed it into the epoxy, but it came out fine. Not exactly what I was going for, but it looks really nice. So I'm excited to work on a few more of those. And then I'm also working on a piece. I took some designs that I did, some drawings of some big cat faces. So there's a lion, a tiger, a leopard, and a cheetah. And I burned those onto 4 different squares of wood and then aligned them up in like a diamond grid and poured epoxy into the center of that, into like the center lines to hold it all together. And so that came out really nice. I still need to put a layer of clear epoxy down over the top of it, but the center inlays has gold epoxy, and that color came out really nice. that came out really nice. So
Yeah,
I'm excited about that piece. Like I said, I just need to put a clear coat over the top of it, and then that should be a nice like hanging piece, like some wall art that can be hung up. So that'll be cool. Um,
And then yeah, one thing that has actually made these projects a lot easier this week was we got the joiner running.
oh yeah. So the joiner, I'm super excited about. We've had it down here in the shop for a couple months now, but it didn't have a motor on it. So we got an old motor from one of our friends' house and put that on there, and it worked at first when we put it on there, and then we hooked everything up and turned it on, and it ran for about a minute, if that, and then just shut off. We weren't getting nothing from the motor. So Tyler took it apart. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, after running the motor for, like Dylan said, about a minute, it just wouldn't move, and I just felt the thing heating up. So I was like, okay, this motor is either shot, or we might be able to break it down and clean it up and get it running again. So I was able to, luckily, get the bolts out. They weren't seized; they were rusty as hell, but I was able to get all the bolts out, pull the motor apart, and get the stator out. And then I was able to clean all the brushes and put the thing back together. And once I got it all cleaned up, put back together, I used some contact cleaner on the brushes and cleared the whole thing out, and then blew all the dust out with an air hose. And then yeah, we got the thing running again, and runs like a charm on the joiner. That thing has really made it easy planing down projects now, because before we were using hand plane, sander, trying to do a few different things, and then now it's a hell of a lot easier with that.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. It's a lot faster. We get a lot cleaner surface on all of our epoxy pours. So that's a tool I'm really excited about. That's really going to be a big help when we're doing epoxy pours.
Yeah, eventually we'll get a planer in here, but for now it gets the job done with what we're using it for.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we scale up, we'll be able to get larger projects in, run some full tabletops through a planer. So
that'll be nice. I'm excited for that too.
So yeah, it's all about scaling up, starting with the small projects and getting to big things we can build. And basically, plan is to be able to build anything in here.
Yeah. And then what? We moved some more heavy stuff this week. It feels like we moved more heavy stuff this week, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We brought that press in here.
Yeah, so we brought a few tools down to the metal shop. We got a 30-ton hydraulic press, and then we're going to have to clean that up. It's been sitting out in the weather for a bit. And we also have a 12-inch bandsaw that it was a wood bandsaw, but it's from like 1950, so it's way over-engineered. So we might just put a metal cutting blade on there and use that for our metal shop. And that's like a stand-up bandsaw. We also have a metal cutting bandsaw. I forget what those are called when they're on like the swivel, but just regular metal cutting bandsaw that we're going to be putting a new motor on soon. And we actually got a really cool tool that we'll be using as probably one of our main metal cutting tools in the shop. It's an old DeWalt like compounding sliding miter saw. I'm not sure if it's called a miter saw, but it's a compounding DeWalt saw. I'll put a picture of it on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. And then I took an old took that old saw, and my buddy who works for Milwaukee had hooked me up with a metal cutting blade. So I put the metal cutting blade on there, and the saw runs a low enough RPM. It's like 3,400 RPM. Technically, I think I should be running it a little lower than that still. Maybe we'll put a speed regulator on there eventually, but for now, it runs the blade, and it cuts like butter through steel. It's a cold cut blade, so it barely heats the stuff up. As I said, it's running a little high in RPM right now, but still definitely not over the maximum of what the blade can handle. So it's been, I've only done a few cuts with it, but it's going to be a nice metal cutting saw. And I'll do a video on that one probably soon. And then I'll probably be doing a video on the whole metal shop. And once the metal shop's set up, we're pretty much ready to start building things in the metal shop and the wood shop area. So within the next couple weeks, we'll be doing a full shop tour video too, and taking you guys around and showing you the full setup we got in here.
Yeah, and that'll be exciting. The wood shop's been up and running for the last few months, and the epoxy room is kind of like an extension of that because it's an extension of the woodworking process. But we don't have all the tools that we need in the metal shop. The metal shop hasn't really been set up, so it'll be cool to get that running because it just adds a whole nother level of things that we can add into our projects.
Yeah, that's actually a combination of metal and woodworking I'm probably going to have to do is going to be on this shelf. So I'm thinking I'm going to use this piece that I laid the end grains in. It's about, what did I say, like a 10-inch by 24, maybe 20-inch shelf, about 1.5 inches thick. So I'm going to take probably just a flat bar of iron, about 1.5 inches, and then weld 2 pegs on it and drill 2 holes lengthwise in the shelf. That way I could mount it as a floating shelf. I'll be able to mount the flat iron to some studs in the wall and then slide the shelf on and screw it into place. And I'll have it as a floating shelf and you won't be able to see the bracketry or anything. So that'll be the first like metal and woodworking project down here. And I'm excited to just finally get the metal shop running and be able to combine all of these processes together.
Yeah, that'll be really nice. What else we've been working on? Oh, I did a few other epoxy pieces. Most of what we've been doing so far has been with the laser engraver and the 3D printer, and I've been playing around with those processes. But I wanted to take it a step back a little bit and see what I could do just by hand. So I did a couple really simple pieces. I don't know if you can see them back here in the frame or not, but I took an old redwood board that we had and I cut it down into some squares and took it over to the bandsaw and just cut like some really simple like geometric landscape shapes into it. It's mountainscapes, I guess. And then separated the pieces apart and inlaid epoxy into those, and those came out pretty cool. They're real simple pieces, but again, I was just playing around with techniques, and I think they came out really nice. So
yeah, I really like the way those turned out.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be nice too, because you'll be able to like backlight them with LEDs or something since you did the epoxy throughout.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been fun. It's been a lot of just playing around with processes and figuring out what the best and like most efficient process is, so that when we go to do projects in the future, we know exactly how to approach it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, we've definitely learned a lot in just the last couple weeks. Since we had the epoxy room poured, we have the epoxy room poured. So we have the epoxy room set up like a week ago, and in that time we've probably done like, I don't know, 5 or 6 more different pours on projects, and in just that short amount of time we've learned a ton. It's just been exponential growth on what we've learned, what we've been able to produce now, and what we're capable and confident in doing. So
yeah, exactly, and that's what it's all about, is just getting comfortable and getting confident with the materials.
Yeah,
and knowing how to tackle projects.
Yeah, then we just got to keep the snowball rolling and just keep building stuff and let that snowball into bigger things, bigger projects to come, and hopefully be able to produce anything we want within the next. Shit, we almost already can.
Yeah, we are almost there. We're getting real close to being able to make just anything. So it's exciting.
So anyone who's more interested in the epoxy pours and resin room that we're talking about, you go check out our YouTube channel. We'll have a link down in the description below. And we have our first video up on putting the resin room together. And this week I'll probably put together a video on all the resin pours we've done. Just give you some resin porn, And then that'll be a nice little video. And then I'll start putting the metal shop together and getting the shop tour set up. So we'll be ready for that. So yeah, we'll have a lot of content coming onto our YouTube channel within the next few weeks.
Yeah, and that I'm also really excited about that. Like, I'm really excited to get more content out, especially the shop tour, and some videos of projects that we've been working on, so that you guys can see what we're working on and see how everything works instead of me just trying to ramble it at you. But yeah, so we'll definitely be putting out some more of that content soon. It's been part of the growing process of the shop, trying to get everything set up to where we can like efficiently record and put out content.
It definitely slows down when you're trying to record something and build and put it together. So we're finally at a point now where we can kind of relax a little when we're building, and it's kind of second nature to just go through there and do what we need to do. But recording, we'd finally start to add that in there and start setting up cameras everywhere we're recording.
Yeah, and we're starting to get the workstation set up, and we know like where they're at and how we interact with them, so we can kind of figure out where we can place like ready to go camera brackets and stuff like that. So it'll be easier to just walk over and pop in a GoPro and press record before you start doing something, and then we know, where the angles are and that everything's going to be captured, and so that'll make it a lot easier. And it's just part of the growing pains of the shop, getting everything set up. But once we get there, we'll hopefully be able to push out content to you guys a lot quicker. So look forward to that.
And I've been experimenting too with some other ways to get some camera angles. So I've been wearing what I'm going to call the Tyler Cam, and it's a little chest mount for a GoPro. So that way I always had a problem when I was filming in the shop that I'd set the camera up and start doing something, then I'd need another tool and I'd walk off frame and go do all the work and then come back and like, oh shit, I forgot to record that whole thing.
Yeah.
So I've been using a chest mount for the GoPro, and that's been turning out pretty cool. It's got some decent footage of just me doing some hands-on work, and I'll be putting that in a few videos. And yeah, that'll definitely be something I'll probably utilize in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something I was fucking around with. I was like, oh, wonder how this chest mount will look. I'm kind of like it. So look forward to seeing some Tyler cam footage. We'll get some Dylan cam footage in there. And,
yeah.
You get some hands-on view of what we do, first-person view of what we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, I want to get the new GoPro Max. It's got a 360 footage and it's capable of live stream. So I don't know if there's any platforms out there that live stream VR, but that'll be really cool once someone is. I mean, if there's any software nerds out here, start working on a freaking app that live streams and lets people share VR videos, because that's kind of the next big step in like social media and everything, is the virtual reality part of it. And I think walking through with a 360 cam so people could look around with their VR goggles and kind of get the full shop tour, that would be another level. So
yeah, that'd be cool.
Definitely going to be looking into doing some of that in the future. And yeah, it's all a matter of scaling up. We'll deliver the content we're capable of now, and promise it'll get better with time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Speaking of scaling up and getting better with time, should we talk a little bit about the projects that we have coming up, what we're going to be working on over the next week? We're definitely going to be, of course, continuing with the epoxy projects. I definitely want to make a couple more of those cutting boards, see how those come out. I got to finish up my tiger piece that I'm working on and get the clear coat of epoxy down on that. I also want to start, I'm going to be playing around this week making some jewelry and stuff with the 3D printer and the epoxy in combination. So I'm excited for that, see how that comes out.
Yeah, Tatiana definitely wants to collaborate with you on a bunch of those projects. She's stoked to be able to 3D print molds and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So probably be working with Tatiana a little bit on that. And then, I'm really excited to have this joiner up and running. So I'm definitely just going to try and pour as much epoxy as I can and try and play around with that and try and get some signs done and some more epoxy inlaid type projects. So we'll be working on that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And then, my big projects for the week will probably be working on spending a little more time focusing on the metal shop area. It's really been neglected since we've been here. We've been doing a lot of work in the wood shop, busting out a lot of woodworking projects. And it's time to spend a little time in the metal shop, getting it ready to start producing work. We got the welder up and running in there. We've got the metal saw now. And then I'll get the press cleaned up this week. And actually, once the metal shop is together, me and Dylan were talking, and we might just make a bandsaw mill.
Yeah.
Probably. It's probably going to happen.
It's probably going to happen.
Okay, it's definitely going to happen. We're
Yeah.
going to make a bandsaw mill.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what size yet, but we have a ton of scrap metal, and we were just talking the other day how cool it would be if we just bring a log in and just slab it. So that'll be one of the first projects we bust out of the metal shop, is a tool for our wood shop. So that'll be really cool, just growing the whole shop, just let it snowball literally and just build tools with our other tools and be able to just build more projects, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about scaling up, like we've been talking about, and so I'm really excited for that. That bandsaw mill would be a big part of scaling up. That would be awesome to be able to bring in, like Tyler said, whole logs and just get slabs, and then we can start doing full-size epoxy tables and stuff like that. And that would be exciting. That's what I'm really like excited for, and that's what I'm really like trying to work into. And that's why I'm so excited about the cutting board project that I did, because it's like a smaller scale version of that, right? You take 2 slabs of wood and pour them together with epoxy and make a nice clean surface. I'll be definitely doing some more of those and getting that process refined so that we can scale up to like full-size tables and benches and stuff like that.
Yeah, it'll be nice once we're tooled up for full-scale projects in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that we're going to be working on probably over the course of this week is our mold making for the epoxy pours.
Yeah, that's definitely been a learning curve for us.
Yeah, we've thrown a couple together just with like spare pieces of wood and stuff that we've around the shop, and I think we need to go and invest in some actual material because
Yeah, I didn't realize there were some screw holes in the bottom of this shelf, so I lost probably like a cup of epoxy below the piece of wood that it was sitting on and glued it to the butcher block that we were working on. So yeah, that was a bit of a mistake there. And the ones I covered with Tyvek worked out really well. So yeah, the Tyvek tip that works good for just popping off molds. You're able to use any type of wood basically and just pop it off and reuse it. Yeah, but yeah, we're definitely gonna have to invest in some better materials for making molds for these things. Because it was a bit of a battle today getting the molds off of the cutting board in this thing.
Yeah. I couldn't even get the whole mold off of my cutting board. We basically just like ripped it off the plywood and like frames that we had it on, and then I had to plane most of that wood off. But yeah, I still came out clean.
Yeah, you get it out of there one way or another.
Yeah, one way or another.
You get it out of there.
Yeah. It's a nice part of having all the tools.
Yeah, definitely.
Got a tool for everything.
Yeah.
We'll get it one way or another.
So yeah, and then also, now that we're all getting set up and getting the YouTube channel rolling, Dylan had a great idea for a giveaway.
Oh, yeah. So for everybody who is already a subscriber, thank you and congratulations because you're the first to be entered into our new giveaway. But we also need your help because the giveaway is not going to take place until we get 100 subscribers. I think, what are we going to do? 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So once we get up to 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel, we'll take those first 100 people, put their names in a hat, we'll draw one out, and we will be giving away a free custom piece, whatever you guys want that's within our capability to make, whether it be a free epoxy inlaid sign, if you want one of these cutting boards,
like this, some cutting board like Dylan's made, anything, just
some kind of 3D print.
Cap it at like $100 budget or so on materials, and then labor is just fucking on us. So it'll be a nice project we can put together, just customize any way you want it. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and then go ahead and share this video with your friends if you could. That'd be great to help us out and get us to 100 quicker. So thanks everyone who already has subscribed. And anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think that's most everything that we've done in the last week. Most of the stuff that we've got coming up for the next week. I think we're looking good.
Yeah, this was take 2 on the podcast. Had some technical difficulties last time, but
that's why we're getting it to you a couple days late. Also, or at least our recording is late. We're going to try and get it all edited and out on time, but that's why our recording day is late. If you caught that at the beginning,
So the plan is we usually record every Saturday and then get the podcast uploaded by Tuesday, and then that's kind of going to be our format for going forward. Is every week we record on Saturday, upload the podcast Tuesday, and then by Friday have our video or our YouTube video up as about what we were doing that previous week.
Yeah.
And then hopefully I'll be able to start making more videos in between there and start throwing out some more content here and there, and just but that's basically the timeline for the podcast and what we're going to try to stick to for our YouTube content for now.
Yeah. So like Tyler was saying, you can always expect the podcast once a week, the workshop weekly, and we'll be trying to get project videos out to you every Friday through our YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for those, and you guys can take a look at what we've been working on.
Yeah, so thanks everyone who listened, and have a good night.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who's returning listeners. Welcome to everybody who's new listeners, and we hope you enjoyed. We hope you stick around, and we hope to see you next week.